What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another podcast, interview, whichever way you want to look at it. We're here to talk Star Wars. And I got a very special guest today. I got Dylan and
Hello.
the tales from the legendary coach. But we'll get into that maybe a bit later. Just wanted to, it's a new book that's coming out. But he's a veteran, a journeyman, if you will, with Star Wars and the expanded universe. He's been around since the beginning. He appears on multiple channels, podcast. He co-hosts a podcast over at Stupid Chainsaw Productions, excuse me,
hmm
with Jeremy, and it's a Legends podcast. It's
hmm
really good. I'll put that in the comments below. He's also wrote numerous articles for the expandeduniverse.com, amongst other things. And he is also a part of a charity organization called the Twin Sons Foundation,
hmm
which helps get reading and writing out there to the youth and general communities and actually all over the galaxy now. So that's really
hmm
cool. And we'll get into that for sure.
Yeah,
But welcome, man. It's a pleasure. I'm glad we get to finally sit down and chat. So how's it going?
it's going pretty good. Thanks for having me. I love coming on talking to people about Star Wars.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I have a blast. I love it. This is the best thing. This is what I signed up to do with to finally make a channel, and it's finally rolling, and it's a great time. And it's also fun to give that experience to other fans who like to hear fans and
hmm
what they like, and so have you. But so how was your day? How's things going?
Pretty good. Normal Saturday for me. I have some things I got to do in the morning, and then around like noon Pacific, so two Eastern or two Central your time, I'm free to do stuff like this.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, typical grocery shopping,
Yeah.
cooking, the normal stuff here. Um, is there anything right now currently that you're reading in Star
Uh,
Wars or any fandom?
so currently I am on. I'm reading the Lando Calrissian trilogy. I'm on book two of that. I just finished Mineharp a while ago. It's kind of weird. My reading time has gotten less and less as I've gone up. Now it's basically I can only read at work, and only at like a certain time, at certain conditions when like it affords me the ability to just sit down and read while I'm at work while I'm watching a Tesco. Um,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
doesn't require any input from me.
yeah. I read on my break at work, and when I wake up in the morning and before I go to bed. But Lando, I want to touch on that real quick because it's like there's a lot of people that are big Lando fans, and
Yeah,
I heard the books are good as well.
yeah, I can definitely see their I can see their appeal, and I can also see why some people didn't like them. If you don't know, I have one of my many series of articles in the expandiverse.com is EU by the numbers, where I broke down the different user star ratings from different book websites, and I kind of ranked all the Star Wars novels based on those accumulated ratings, and then did the rank the authors. And I noticed that for some reason that old Del Rey stuff just didn't really sit well with people. People didn't really like it. So like the Han Solo, the original Han Solo adventures, the Lando adventures, didn't really do all that well, which I was interested. It was
Yeah,
interesting data, but
yeah. That is pretty interesting. I was going to say you're kind of a number and stats guy from
yeah.
what I gather as well, and that's always a cool thing. So why don't you give us a little backstory on how Dylan became involved in Star Wars?
So I honestly don't remember what happened first, but it was either one of two things happened. I don't know the exact timeline of events, but they happened very similar. Either my parents took me to see Phantom Menace in theaters first, and then I watched the OT on the VHS, or my parents showed me the OT on VHS before we went to see Phantom Menace. I was four. I don't remember exactly the order, but I know those two things happened like the same weekend, basically. And it's like I've been here ever since. I saw Attack of the Clones when it came out. I saw on opening day. My dad took me to see the midnight premiere of Revenge of the Sith, and very quickly around that, like especially after Revenge of the Sith, I was like, well, that's the last of the movies, right? But there's got to be more out there. So I started looking. I started playing the video games. I had a friend at school who was telling me all about because he was currently reading. Legacy of the Force, I believe, was coming out. So he was telling me all that was happening in there, and I also remember like watching him play some of the KOTOR. I want to say it was KOTOR, the first KOTOR.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly. And I got into the video games. I eventually got into the books through the Incredible Cross sections because I really found it so interesting, the illustrations of like the inner workings of all like the different vehicles and stuff, and then eventually jumped my way into the novels and the comics.
Wow, that's pretty impressive that you being 4 and your mom and dad taking you to the fan.
Yeah.
I mean, that I was there at that the midnight showing of that with some friends, and it was crazy. Did you guys ever talk about that moment? Do you ever be like, hey, you remember when we got some tickets?
Not really. Again, my parents grew up with Star Wars, so they were big fans, and they were like, "Oh, there's a new Star Wars movie. Let's take him to it because I'm sure he'll love it." And boy, were they right.
Yeah. Well, of course. I mean, that's why we're here today, right?
Yeah.
So you didn't get really heavily involved then with the KOTOR games? You just watched some of your buddies were playing it, or?
Yeah, I never had the KOTOR games growing up, and I tried picking them up like later. But I just could never really get into it. I like the lore of it. I liked the John Jackson Miller's comic series, which is kind of loosely tied to it, but like not really. It's the same era, and there's some characters that come in, but it's a whole other story that takes place around that time.
Yeah, I never really got involved in the games either. A lot of my buddies were. I was kind of on a different path. I was more of a Final Fantasy guy. Final Fantasy, 7 and all them. So I didn't follow that at all. And nor, did I. It wasn't until later on that I experienced this, what we're going to get into here. But the books. So you found out about the books, the comics.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have a comic shop nearby? Or
no, I honestly did not start actually reading the comics until after the decanonization. For those that don't know, like in 2015, January 1st, 2015 is when Dark Horse was going to lose the rights to create Star Wars comics before they basically handed over to Marvel. So in December of 2014, they unleashed the Dark Horse Mega Bundle, which was they put up every single Star Wars comic from the old Marvel runs and the Dark Horse and their Dark Horse runs up in one massive bundle on digital for $300. And I got it, and I still have it. I don't know how well this comes up, and then I just started reading the comics because it was an absolute steal. I feel so bad for everyone that wasn't around, and the few people who were like, I know Matt talks about it all this time. He was like, maybe I'll get it, but now I have all of them in physical print. And then years later, he's just like, man, what was I thinking? $300 for like $300 for every single Star Wars Legends comic out there, essentially. It's such a steal. And yeah, as soon as I got that, I was like, well, I no longer have the excuse of, well, they're just so hard to come by and like they're really expensive. It's like, no, I have them all. Let me just read them.
Yeah, man. I'm starting to get into the comic book side of things too, and they're expensive, because I would like to have physical copies. For some reason, like digital reading to me, I just can't. It's not my cup of tea, which it is what it is. But trying to find them comics are crazy expensive.
Yeah, and I have some of them in physical. Like I have, I went out and got the Legacy in hardcover because Legacy is my favorite comic series in Star Wars. I have the Dark Empire trilogy. I have the first of Crimson Empire in hardcover, and what else do I have? I got the Epic collections for Tales of the Jedi, because again, that's really good, and that's another one that's really expensive and hard to get out. And then I got the big hardcover special edition that they did for the KOTOR comics. So I have a few of them in print. Basically, the ones that I really liked. I was like, yeah, I'll have a physical copy of this just in case something happens here. But it's a really long process and really expensive tracking some of these down, especially nowadays.
Yeah. Well, at least if the power goes out, you got something to read.
Yeah.
So going back, so you didn't get into the comics until later on that you found out about the decanonization. So you were essentially a fan pre Disney era, we'll say.
Yeah.
Right. So then you found out about it afterwards. Like, how did that affect you? I know that's like kind of a big topic, but like once you found out that they took all the stuff you were getting into away, like how did that make you feel in a sense?
Very angry, I would say. Very like disheartened that like this thing I'd been following and for several decades at this point that I hadn't dived at that point too deep into the lore. I'd read a few books, mainly not to the extent that I have today, but still, it's like I knew the stories. I knew the continuity, and I knew roughly the timeline of events that happened. And just to have everything is basically for naught now. We're just going to go off in this different direction. I think my initial thought was, well, I guess I just don't care about Star Wars anymore. And then in my search online to find anyone that cared about this being gone as much as I did, I found the fledgling movement or not necessarily fledgling, but the small community of the greater movement at the time through again that random Reddit post comment section that where someone linked Matt's video about, it's the one that he's on vacation and it's him going over the last of the quotes he had. And I was just like, okay, this guy gets it. I'm not the only one. That's what's been taken from me.
Yeah, as I'm starting to learn, I've been around for a while. I knew there was books, but I didn't realize the lore went deep. I was been in and out of the fandom, come back in, YouTube, checking it out, seeing what I should read, and then that's when I find out about the whole story. So I'm looking at this from both sides of the coin here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm seeing it both ways, and to me, as I'm reading, it's like, man, that would have been a good, punch to the gut feeling. Almost when Metallica came out with the Black Album and everybody was trash talking Metallica and burning their albums and stuff. I could see, there's a cross reference there, but yeah, that's what I'm interpreting now. And I liked some of the Disney stuff, I'm cool with it. But the EU side of things is a whole world, and just to have that, just all that material there, just
yeah,
forget about it. That really stinks. So that happened. You're online, you're searching, you come across, Matt Wilkins. Was he one of the first ones that you watched, or there wasn't, communication was limited, we'll say. So there wasn't what we have today with Instagram and all the social media and stuff. We were still sending emails and stuff,
Yeah, I think Matt Wilkins was the first I watched, and then I watched his backlog of EU videos going over all the quotes. And then I remember one where he talked about the rebel raids that were happening, which was what eventually became the social media campaigns. And I did some digging and found out that those were primarily happening on Facebook. I found the Facebook groups through that. I started joining, and this is around August of 2014, and I started getting more involved in those. And then kind of like I said on Chris's channel, the more I got involved, the more stuff I just got put in charge of, because I was one of the more active people doing something. And then the more and more that was on my plate. And now I'm almost at a point where I'm trying to delegate stuff to other people.
Yeah.
And doing less.
Yeah. Dylan's plate's, it's got the desserts next to it ready to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, to mention Chris Nelson, you guys did man, it's cool. It should go to a film festival, and somebody should check this out. I listened to it. You guys did a great job. So basically they went back through the fandom of the years, what they remember and all the before the decanonization, and then Disney and everything that's happened with the IP since. It's excellent. I'll link that in here too, because like I said, you guys did a great job. There was a lot of work put into that. Hey.
Yeah, we had again, he started a shared Excel file where we had every year, and we had events, and we were constantly adding to the event to each year's of stuff. Yeah. And then we were let's film it. And then it was originally our hubris. We originally wanted to do the entire thing in one video, and then we got 2 hours into the first one, and we're only in 2015. There's no way.
I can gather that I listened to it a few times already. So yeah.
And I've listened to it too, and I'll listen back to it, and I'll hear us talking about things, and I'm just like, oh yeah, there was this thing too. Why didn't I mention that? That's things that are so like big things that we missed, and it's why. And I encourage people in the video. I still encourage people to make their own version of that, because I know that there's stuff we missed, and there's stuff that we kind of talked about, but because like we weren't directly involved with it, we don't really know all that was happening with it. But I know there are members of the community that are still around that were. So, you know, please tell your story about these things, or your point of view of what was happening, because it's, you know, Chris and I aren't the only ones that were there. We're not the only source on this, and we've forgotten a lot. So it would really help out the kind of collective shared memory if you guys put your stories out there as well, of how you saw things through the timeline. I would love to see it.
Yeah, like I said, it could be a film, like literally documentary. Why not? I mean, we're doing Tiger King things, you know.
Yeah.
You know, you don't really realize how big Star Wars actually is. Like the big picture of it is insane. It's amazing, and there's great people. You know, there's great people, and you have fun conversations, and yeah, tell your stories. That's why I'm kind of doing this, and I'm having fun. And so far, I've been getting a lot of great feedback, and everybody's been real supportive and digging it, and that's cool. And I appreciate everyone, you know, as well. So jumping back to the beginning, you come across. Was there any other? There was a channel that was brought up, Minox Nest. You were on that a few times. That was like a really early on podcast, we'll say.
Yeah, that was a podcast. It was with Tim, the late Tim. He passed away, I think, a couple of years ago at this point. Tristan, Daniel, and Josie, and then sometimes Matt was on there as well, and they had other like guests. I found that pretty soon, again through Matt, because he would mention it something, and then through that I basically got to meet all of them, and we had this Skype group, because, you know, Discord didn't exist back then, or it wasn't. Right. So we had like a Skype group, and we would have like late night Skype calls about like where we would just talk to each other and like talk about like what we were reading, Star Wars and stuff. And I remember Josie in that group. She doesn't have internet, or at the time she didn't have internet at the time in her house. Like she didn't have Wi-Fi or anything. So she would drive to like the parking lot of like a McDonald's and use the McDonald's Wi-Fi from the parking lot. And like she would be sitting in the parking lot at like 2 a.m, like in her Skype calls. And we would be like, Josie, go to bed. Like, are you okay? To like, just
that's awesome. Well, right there, that's perfect. You know, they're great friends, family, just having fun. I would do the same thing, you know, that's awesome. That's a good story. So through the Discord, did you guys ever when did people want to really start? Hey, let's talk about this. Like, is that, you know, some conversations that were had?
I don't know. It was just kind of a thing that grew naturally. It's like we would, you know, the more active members of the community, basically, like, oh, you're doing something. Let's talk. And then we would like shoot a podcast, or like I'd go on someone's show. And then like in the after show, we would just like, the after show would be like another 2 to 3 hours of us just all talking and having fun. And then we'd be like, hey, let's do this again. And then like, we would be like, okay, how's like Saturday? Everyone free? And then we would jump on and we would do like just more talks. I remember there were so many times we'd be like 2 to 3 hours into a talk, and you're like, man, if only we were recording this. This would make a great podcast.
Yeah. Oh, you guys probably had a bunch of them for sure. Yeah. So when did you get involved, like through this chain of people you guys started doing stuff? When did you get involved with the expandeduniverse.com?
So when Matt approached me originally, because he had this website, him and Chris were working on this website, and he wanted people to contribute to it, and he wanted ideas. And I think at the time, I was really big into Armada, Star Wars Armada, the miniatures game. Okay. So, because I like the ships and the technology of Star Wars. So I thought, okay, I can make some articles about expanding universe ships and like their capabilities and stats and whatnot. So I started doing that. And then I kind of got, I kind of ran out of ships that I wanted to talk about. And then it just became like a thing of, I was whenever I got an idea for a story, I would write it up and I sent it to Matt, and eventually he gave me access to actually like publish stuff directly on the site.
Yeah.
And I've just become like, I don't know. I've just become like a semi-regular, like once in a blue moon, I'll have like a story or a series that I get like, that I get like really passionate about, and I'll make it, and then I'll go on hiatus for like 2 years, and I won't post an article, and then all of a sudden I'll be back with something big. Yeah,
That's cool. Yeah, you got some, I read a few of them, and you did a really good job. And like the ships that you brought, like people don't realize there's a lot of crazy ships in Star Wars, and to break it, you can get really technical, like breaking it all down of the parts and the mechanics. Like, when did you become interested in the like right off the bat? When you first seen Star Wars, you're like, I like the ships. They're crazy.
Yeah, I would say right off the bat. Again, my first, one of the first, along with the video games, was the Incredible Cross Section, just because I liked the ships of it. And then as I started getting more into, especially the books and the comics, when they're talking about these ships that they're like, and there's like seldom, there's like very few like actual like depictions of outside of a few video games. I remember one video game I always gravitated to was the Empire at War series. Because the naval combat and the ships in it was really nice. And then I found the modding community, which added even more stuff. I still play a lot of the mods to this day. And that was always a big interest of mine, was the ships. And why I was so excited to help out on the Expandiverse.com ship tournament, even though that kind of ended up being a little bit crazy.
That's cool. Yeah, it's fun. It's funny. Everybody's got something different that really stands out to them in Star Wars. Whether it's the lightsabers or the blasters or the bounty hunter, the Jedi or the Sith, the ships. Even some planets people really like. So it's really cool to hear that. Is there any ship that's your favorite? Exactly.
It's a tie between the Pelion class Star Destroyer, because I really like its design and I really like its namesake Grand Admiral Pelion, and the MC-30C frigate that the Rebel Alliance used. Fairly not a lot. It's not in a lot of things, but it's a really cool ship, and I like. It's very much a glass cannon ship that like it has no armor. It's really fast. It's supposed to get really close, unload a huge barrage of proton torpedoes, and get out of there before it blows up, because like a gust of wind will blow it up.
I learned something right now. So that's good. That's awesome. We learn something new every day. So you were taking on more of a role. You're getting more involved. You're on the website. Star Wars Celebration. Now you've been to them before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why don't you give us a little bit of what that's like a little feeling of that?
It's hard to describe if you haven't never been to a convention, but it's like, it's so weird. It's so weird and surreal being in like a place where like everyone loves Star Wars and everyone's like constantly talking about Star Wars, and you can have like really deep conversations with like random strangers about like Star Wars, and they know exactly what you're talking about. I remember at the first celebration I went to, Celebration Anaheim in 2015, I would just hang around there was like one section, it was like was it I think it was Barnes and Noble or something. There was one like section of like a bunch of tables that was like a bookshop basically, but they had a bunch of Star Wars books, and I kind of just hung around there, and I would talk to people about like, I was kind of talking to people again to kind of gauge their interest in the expanded universe, but also like talking about like, kind of recommending books to them. And some people they were there who would also read, and it's like, oh yeah, and remember that one time, remember this book when this happens, and we'd be like going back and forth. It was so great to just like be able to talk to random strangers, and like to be able to like get into these really deep intellectual conversations that require like so much background and knowledge, and actually be able to have a back and forth with someone other than like just like talking at someone and being like, oh yeah, so then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, but then there's this,
Right, just building and growing, and the next thing you know, you're exchanging information. Yeah, it's always fun. Yeah, I've never been to one. That's why it's like, it'd be nice to hear somebody's perspective of what they witnessed and the excitement. And I mean, I can just imagine the cosplayers. You got any crazy stories that happened while you were there?
So I remember I was in line to get an autograph from John Jackson Miller, and the person in front of me, she had come in a full Jerial costume from the KOTOR series, and like she was like, "Oh yeah, I've done this before." He signed my and like she showed me her like lightsaber staff that like he had already signed, and then, like it was like a reoccurring thing. Also at Celebration in 2015. That was, of course, the year after Aaron Allston passed away. So they had an Aaron Allston memorial panel for him. And I remember, I can't remember the character's name, but she was in Starfighters of Adamar. She was the character that had like a protocol droid's head on like her shoulder. That was for translation purposes. It's been a while since I've read Starfighters of Adamar, but I remember someone cosplayed as her and came to the panel, the Aaron Allston's panel. Like that was like such a niche cosplay to just have, and it's just show up in like the most perfect opportunity for it.
That's cool. That's really cool that they did that too. Oh man. I can just imagine.
Yeah.
Did you meet? I mean, you said you met John Jackson Miller. He's a great guy. I met him twice. He's awesome. Did you meet anybody else, or were you surprised to see?
So I met Leland Shee and Pablo Hidalgo a couple times. I met, which I talked about. I had I had a few conversations with Shee. He seemed very interested at the time because Force Awakens wasn't out yet. And in the movie, I didn't have much. I didn't have that big of a conversation with Hidalgo, other than I had him and Leland Shee sign my copy of the Reader's Companion. So I have a copy of the Reader's Companion signed by Leland Shee and Pablo Hidalgo, for whatever that's worth. I met Christy Golding at Celebration Anaheim. I had some conversations with her about Sword of the Jedi, and she claims that she had never written it, and she doesn't really have anything. Take that for what you will. I had some conversations with Drew Karpyshyn. I remember he had a lot of ideas. When I talked to him about, hey, have you ever, would you be interested in writing Star Wars or Legends again? He's like, oh yeah. He went on about like ideas he had for stuff after like the Bane trilogy with Zana and stuff, and other like SWTOR related stuff, that basically the Old Republic era, because he loves the Old Republic era and like about things he would do. And I was sitting there like, yeah, I wish I'd recorded it because it was fascinating stuff just to hear him go off and on. I met James Lucino.
How was that?
Really nice. Again, really knowledgeable at stuff. He also seems pretty big on like, yeah, I'd like to write again if I had the chance. And he would, of course, write again because he wrote, I think it was Rogue One Catalyst was what he wrote after 2015. Because he had already had, what was that book? He had a book that was Tarkin that was coming out at the time, which is why he was there.
I was just going to say, there's like a duology book of that with, John Jackson Miller's got a book, New Dawn. It's got that and Tarkin, and when I met him, I bought that. He had that book there. I'm like, well, I'll get it because it's him and he signed it, and it's really interesting. I mean, sometimes maybe authors maybe come off of, but John Jackson Miller was down to earth. I mean, he was sitting there we were shooting the breeze like we're doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, they're just people, and again, it's like, especially with authors, right? Because like you read a book for an author. And like, other than like, maybe there's a single picture at the back of the page, but you don't really know what authors look like. So they can, at cons, they just blend in with the crowd, because unless you have looked up what does John Jackson Miller look like, you could walk right past him and not even know. I told this story. I was like standing next to Steve Sansweet for 15 minutes and not knowing who, because I didn't know what Steve Sansweet looked like. I didn't even know it until like 10 people had come up and asked him for autographs and talked about him. It's like, this guy must be someone special. Who are you? Like, who are you?
Oh man, that's cool. Oh man, I just can imagine. I'd like to go. Do you ever plan to go any future ones?
We were planning as Twin Sons to go to Celebration when it was going to be in Anaheim again, and then COVID delayed it, and then we were kind of, it kept delaying, And eventually it was going to happen, but the invites for the fan tables hadn't come out yet. And the convention was like a few months away. And we had to make the decision of even if we get it tomorrow, we don't have enough time to actually like get everything we need, to go to the convention. So we're not, and then it's going to be I'm not going to go to Celebration Europe because I can't make that trip. But if it ever comes back to the States and is somewhere close, I would definitely like to go again.
Cool. Yeah, if it came somewhere close to my area, I'm up in Wisconsin, so
yeah,
it's a bit so far. It's a bit to get around,
Yeah.
So let's lead into that. You mentioned the Twin Sons, and I want to talk to you about that because that's really awesome that you're a part of that. So when did you find out about that? How was that? How were you?
So Twin Sons, it's kind of interesting. Twin Sons is an offshoot of the Expanded Universe billboard that we made, that we put up. Because we had so if you don't know, we had this goal of we want to show directly to Disney and Lucasfilm that we are very serious about what we want. And these two other fan projects for Surge and Crystal Pepsi had done this idea where they bought a billboard and put it outside the headquarters. And it worked for both of them because Surge and Crystal Pepsi both came back for a limited time, but they did come back directors orders of the billboard. So we had this idea of we'll do a billboard ourselves. So we raised money for the billboard, and in the donation description for the billboard, we said any additional funds we receive greater than what we need will be used to purchase books that'll go to a library. We ended up getting, I think, around like $200 and something more than we actually needed. So we ended up buying 22 books, and Brian, who co-founded Twin Sons with the rest of us, donated to his library in, I think it was the Dobson Ranch Library in Mesa, Arizona, which he used to work at. He had an inn, so that's why he could do that. And then afterwards, we were just like, that was great. We can continue doing that. And the other thing was the way that the tax law works, right? When you do a fundraiser like that, someone has to report that money as income, and then that gets like added to their taxes. So Brian had to take the tax hit on that. And we were like, if we ever want to do more crowdfunding events again, we should probably have like a nonprofit just so that we don't have to put that tax burden on someone else. So that's how Twin Sons came to be. And immediately after that, we put in a request to become to go to Celebration Orlando as a fan table. We collected, we got approved. We collected 61 books from just people who would show up to the convention. They either had books with them, like spare books that they donated to us, or some people were even like going to like the various shops and vendors and buying books and bringing it to us. We had raffles. We had like a raffle for like everyone who donated a book. You got one ticket per book you donated, and then like we had raffles and prizes. We had like bookmarks. We had wristbands. We had all lanyards and all this stuff to get people to donate. And then we took all those books and we took them to I'm forgetting what the hospital is called in Orlando, but it's like an extension of like it's like an extension of a Disney hospital, if I remember correctly. We donated the books there. We also, in fundraising for Celebration, we had, again, more money than we needed. So we bought an additional 61 books and donated them. I wish I had the sheet up of where all the books went. We donated them to another hospital. We then did a donation at Chalk. We did donations at Phoenix Children's Hospital, UPMC in Pittsburgh, 2 hospitals in Texas, Dallas Scott Wright, and I'm forgetting the other one. Just all over the country, we've been donating books. At present, we are over 1,500 books donated, Star Wars books donated, both from active fundraisers that we've done and when we've gone to conventions. People have brought books to us, and then we donate them to somewhere local in the convention. So yeah.
That's great. That's awesome and amazing to hear that you guys, I mean, that's impressive. And you're really good with numbers, man. So, I mean, if you're looking I can look good for a banker or something, or a stockbroker.
I am the treasurer after all. I'm the one that comes up with the donation numbers for what we need to bring books.
That's excellent. And I'll put that in the description too for that organization because they have a page, Facebook page, and that's great. How long has that actually? How long has that been going on?
I think we officially started the foundation in June of 2016, so we're going on 7 years now. Um, yeah, I believe that's right.
That's awesome. Still going strong. Is there any other organizations that you guys are a part of that you know, like the Rebel Legion or the 501st?
Yeah.
I know they all
So
collaborate.
yeah, oftentimes just going into when we do hospital visits, we will partner up with the 501st, the local 501st garrison or Rebel Legion that's in the area. They send costume volunteers with us to donate the books. So like the kids get like a sometimes it depends on the hospital. Different hospitals have different standards, especially pre-COVID versus post-COVID. Some hospitals will let us actually go room to room. When Travis and myself went to Chuck, we actually got to go like literally room to room where we visited these kids and
That's
like
cool.
actually got to hand them the book. They got pictures with like the costume volunteers. Other times, like at Phoenix Children's Hospital, they would set up like an area that the kid, like an area for us where we would set up the books. We would have the costume volunteers, and then the kids would come to us, and like uh, and just like they would have like various activities and stuff, and we would give them books. I remember one time in one of the Pittsburgh, not the Pittsburgh. I think it was the second time I went to Phoenix Children's Hospital. Someone also donated a whole bunch of Star Wars figures, so we were handing out not only like really expensive stuff. Like I need to say this; these were like old Kenner stuff, like from like the late '90s, early 2000s. So like not cheap stuff either. Like really good. We were just like, dang, this is really nice.
Oh
And
man, them kids.
yeah, there. I remember at the Phoenix one, we actually had one of the one of the people that came. She had brought her Juno Eclipse uniform out, and we perfectly had like copies of the Force Unleashed with us. So like we got a picture of her with the Force Unleashed, and she's actually our main contact at the at this. Oh shoot, what's the garrison name?
Boy, there's a bunch of them.
I know.
Yeah.
There's like I live in California. There's like 6 different garrisons here, so I get them mixed up all the time.
That's cool. Yeah, I met a few. Some came to our local library here in town, and John Jackson Miller showed up, and there were some stormtroopers, and them people really put the work in, and they're excellent with the fans. You know, it's cool, and that's what I mean. Like the kids just doing that. Just I mean, that made me feel good hearing that story. You know, just
Yeah.
a kid gets to smile. That especially whatever circumstance that they're in. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
So, oh man, I'd love to be a part of something like that. That's great that you guys came up with this. How many members are there of you guys?
Let me check. I haven't done a head count in a while. We have a lot of people.
I got them stumped. Everyone with numbers right now.
Well, I've just never taken like a head count. We have a bunch of people. We have like so technically speaking, legally, there's only 3 members of Twin Sons. They're the 3 board members: myself, Amelia, and Brian.
Okay.
But we have people like
just volunteering and stuff.
Yeah, volunteer. And again, this is all volunteer. None of us get any money from this. All of us have day jobs that take up like 90% of our time. We do this on our own time. We do this on our own dime. Brian, I, and Bill, back when he worked with us, would actually we would donate money into the foundation just to keep the doors open, so we can keep as much of the money we put in the fundraisers to actually go towards the books to kind of lessen that burden as much as we can. Amazon Smile, of course, helps so that we didn't have to do that, and now Amazon Smile is going away, so we'll have to do that again.
I was going to mention that. Yeah, that's a shame. Well, that's just great. Just think. I mean, this all started when you were 4 years old, getting, in the back seat, going in the Phantom Menace, and to where you are now. So through the years, we touched on that. Did you collect anything? As a kid when you became a fan, do you still have do you collect other things besides the books or comics now?
Star Wars wise, there are 12 people, by the way, in our Twin Sons chat.
Okay.
I just did the head count. So I've collected some of the figures, particularly the figures, the expanded universe figures that we've gotten in the recent years, especially the ones that have won the fan poll. So I have a Revan, I have a Jaina, I have a Republic Trooper, I have the Karner Jack / Kirk Canos misprint. That's funny. Oh yeah, misprints as well. I have the Rule of Two misprints from the Essential Legends collection. I have the Crystal Star misprint that's actually Witchfire.
Yeah, I heard about that. That's crazy.
I have a bunch of spare copies of Heart of the Jedi that I'm waiting to give away for like Twin Sons related events. I know Brian has some as well.
Yeah, that's a whole other topic with books that were never released or are now starting to become, get your hands on.
Yeah.
So you don't collect much of that now, you would say, unless it's EU related that comes out special, like the Malak that's coming out. And
yeah,
I
also did Lego for a time. I was really big into Lego. I kind of stopped getting Legos because they've gotten away from. It's not entirely their fault with like prices going up and stuff. They've started making models that are smaller and a lot less detailed and have a lot less parts count, which is mainly to keep like the price of their stuff down. But around the time they started doing that, I stopped getting Lego because I kind of like those really large, the larger, more detailed, challenging Lego sets. I don't really like this direction that they're going. But before that, I was really big into Lego, and I would get a lot of the Lego Star Wars sets that would come out, and the kind of collector's figures that would come out for it as well.
Nice. Do you still have them? Or do you still have?
Oh yeah, I still have
or something.
Yeah, they're in the other room.
Nice.
Collecting dust. I have to dust them every now and then.
Hey, no, I mean even ones that are open and put together sell for a lot of money. It's crazy. You're right. Legos are nuts.
Yeah. Brian has he tells me this all the time. It's the best financial strategy is just to buy Legos and keep them in the box and cold storage for like 10 years. Nothing appreciates in value more than a Lego set for some reason.
My wife is going to listen to this because I told her that. I read an article that within the past 3 months that said you should invest in Legos because it's worth more than gold.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. It's true. It's crazy what they go for. In my local Walmart, there's Luke's Landspeeder, the big collector's edition, the big one that just came out a few months back, and it's $240. And it's like, I'm looking at that like, man, there's a couple years that could be worth more than that.
Just to cover us, not actual financial advice, just like just like a trend of the last 10 years is Legos have particularly gone incredibly up in value, especially in the box. If that trend continues, I don't know, but it's what's happened.
Yes, that's nuts, man. It's crazy. Is there any like something that you have that's like really a gem to you? Something that you really are proud to have?
A few things I would say. I mean, my copy of the Reader's Companion that I got signed by Hidalgo and Leon Chi, because it's just like such a unique thing. I have the Brazilian Thrawn trilogy covers, which have some pretty really nice artwork on them that I like. I have the issue of the Star Wars Insider. I'm forgetting off the top of my head what it was, which issue exactly it was, but it's the one with the Fightsaber article, which was the first one that introduced the different lightsaber forms, which I don't think a lot of people have. The five different prints of 108 that I have are also pretty special to me. I'm looking at my bookshelf. Let's see, what else do I have?
I can just imagine your bookshelf is probably immaculate, eh?
Oh no, it's not. Oh, it's kind of a mess.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, here I thought there would have been a fireplace.
I have one bookshelf, and as you can see, I need another bookshelf because I'm running out of room. As I'm doing the thing where you stack books in front of other books.
Yep.
But then, you have this thing where, I have this thing with my collection. My Star Wars books have to be in chronological order. That's the correct way, in my opinion, to display them. But I'll have a problem where I'll run out of space, and then I can so like I have like gaps in my bookshelf because I can't physically fit the next book because it's like it's one of the TCW tie-in novels that are the trade paperback side, not the mass market paperback side, or it's like one of the it's one of the young adult books that's also on a different side. So I have like wasted space on my shelf that I'm not using because like I have to have my stuff in chronological order. I just need a new shelf, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm with you, but I just can't do that with mine because I don't own. Do you have all the EU books? I don't own them all. So
I have all of the adult novels in paperback. Yes,
okay.
I'm eventually going to look into trying to complete a hardcover collection, but that I'm dreading that. I keep putting it off, but every year I put it off, it gets more and more expensive. But like, I just can't make that commitment right now.
That's what I was going to ask you next is a hardcover paperback because I'm at that toss up myself. It's like maybe I'll just get the hardcover of the book that I really like, in the top 5 or top 10, what have you. But no, your bookshelf looks good. But that's cool that you like it in chronological order. You watch the movies that way, or do you watch them originally the way they came out?
I don't usually do big marathons of all the movies. I'll kind of get in the mood to watch one of the movies, and I'll usually watch them one at a time. Like I'll just say like I want to watch Attack of the Clones today, and I'll just watch Attack of the Clones, and then like that'll be it for me. Or I'll or like Revenge of the Sith or Return of the Jedi. I just get in a random mood where I just want to watch it. I've never done the full marathon where I just go back to back, so I don't know what order I would watch them in.
I when I showed my wife them, I did it, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, and she kind of went on. We'll have to rewatch them. She's getting there though. She likes The Mandalorian. We like The Mandalorian, so she's into that. So are the boys. So I was just curious that because sometimes some people the way they watch them, but me personally, I'll just either watch A New Hope is normally my go-to, or The Phantom Menace. And then I'm out. I watch them at night when I go to bed, and I'm out. When just hearing them. Is there a moment in the films that really stand out to you?
Ooh, I think the final it's not really a moment. It's just the whole final battle in Return of the Jedi, I think, is like with the space battle, the ground battle, and like the duel between Luke and Vader that eventually becomes a Luke and Palpatine one-sided affair till Vader gets involved. That whole that whole thing, all culminating in the you were right about me. Tell your sister you were right. I think is really poignant. That's probably it actually.
Okay.
That and then like when it just fades into like the single piano playing the Empire theme as like he dies, basically.
Yeah, that's a good one. My first, everybody probably knows, is just when Luke, he's all in black, hits that lightsaber, that just right away, just gets you jacked up.
Yeah.
Everybody's different. Anything from the prequels?
The prequels. It's really weird. But I love the scene when Commander Cody puts his comlink away after getting Order 66, because again, like I've obviously read the novelization where like I think the line is like Cody was like a soldier. He was trained to follow orders without question, but he was also human. And as he put his comlink away, he couldn't help but think, you couldn't have told me that before I gave him his lightsaber back. And like, I don't know if like that was like, I don't know how much of that, because Stover took a lot of creative liberties with the Revenge of the Sith novelization, right? So I don't know how much of that was in the script. I don't know how much of that was like Stover's own recreation.
Yeah.
But ever since I read that book and I rewatched that movie, I can just tell by his body language that was exactly what he was thinking in that one moment. Like, you got to be kidding me. I just gave him his lightsaber back.
It's good, man. Yeah, mine's just got to be the epic in the Phantom Menace when you see Darth Maul for the first time.
That's a good one. I mean, Duel of the Fates is such the instrumental opening for Duel of Fates with that in that reveal.
There's some soundtracks in movies and such in cinema that have that, like, that is the Duel of Fates is just it's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and also, like, I'm a really big fan of the Lord of the Rings soundtrack. I think that music is excellent. Is there any other fandoms that you're into heavily?
Heavily, not as heavily as Star Wars. Star Wars is my I guess my ride or die. But yeah, I guess I like a lot of other franchises, kind of like tertially, not as much into it. I like Lord of the Rings a lot. I haven't actually gotten into the books or the extended lore, but I will on occasion, every like few years, rewatch the trilogy of movies. I very much enjoy that. What else am I big into? I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Like the Marvel, the Marvel movies, or
I watched them. I was kind of passively into them, but not enough to like get in too into it. I was really into the Halo universe for a while. Then I also didn't read a lot of the expanded lore into it, which I know there's a deep lore, a deep expanded universe for the Halo for as well. And I know that a lot of Star Wars writers like Karen Traviss, Greg Bear, and Troy Denning also wrote in the Halo universe. But I haven't, other than like kind of knowing the bits and pieces for like the lore of what happened, I haven't actually read any of the books. But I was fairly interested in the Halo universe for a while.
Yeah, just Star Wars is the top priority. Yeah,
it's a lot of time and work that I put into Star Wars, and it's like I have this thing where like if I get into something, I have to really get into it. So I'm kind of picky about what I choose to get really into.
Yeah,
because
I'm with you. Really, Star Wars is the only sci-fi, thing that I'm into. I mean, I like the movie Aliens and stuff from back in the day, but
Aliens is good.
Just because this is like fantasy too, and I really like fantasy. So, well, get into a couple fun questions here for you. So, what type of character would you be in a Jedi, smuggler? I've been kind of asking everyone these kind of similar questions to see.
Probably a Jedi, because I would really like to like know what being connected to the Force is actually like. Like they, especially in a lot of the novels where like someone is like learning about their connection to the Force, they kind of get into it a little bit of what it's like to like open yourself up and like feel the universe. But I would just love to be able to like know what that experience is like.
Yeah, that's what I would want to be too, man, for sure. What would your character's name be?
I don't know. I'm not good with names. I don't know. Dylan, I guess.
Yeah. Master Dylan.
Master Dylan.
You're right. Yeah. Do you have a favorite character?
Ooh, a few. I would say movies wise, my favorite character has always been Kit Fisto. I don't know why. I just like the alien species of Nautolan, and I think he's a really fun character. And the very few glimpses we get of him in the expanded universe and the movies as well. EU wise, it's probably, I go back and forth on this, but my number one is definitely Cade Skywalker. My number two is, as I said, Gilad Pellaeon. But they get really close to each other sometimes.
Right on. A couple new ones there to add to the list. Do you have a favorite saber color?
I've always liked green. I don't know why. I just always gravitated to green lightsabers.
Yeah, that's my color.
It's kind of basic because it's one of like the three main colors, but
right. So we've been on your journey here, got a little bit of your backstory. Is there any moment that really, like, achievement that's, through your journey that Star Wars has impacted your life, that you're proud of?
There's a lot.
I mean, you were involved in a lot, man. You're like behind the scenes, but you got a lot of knowledge. And I'm like, I want to talk to that guy.
I would say the billboard is definitely up there. Being with Brian and Bill in San Francisco, like physically seeing the billboard, that's got to be up there. The the
Yeah.
War Council at Red Robin, completely unforgettable experience of like trying to be like, okay, which character are we going to back this time? And that whole brainstorming session when 108 came out, because we never thought we were going to get anything, and all of a sudden Marvel was like, here's a comic that kind of finishes up this storyline seemingly out of nowhere, and being able to go to the comic shop and like, because I never had that experience of going to the comic shop and getting like a new Star Wars comic. So getting to have that experience for the first time, and then the comic shop owner not even knowing that they had it in stock. It's so funny.
Man. Yeah. A lot of people some people might know, but you were with a group of people that got a billboard put up right outside of Lucasfilms, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. For the expanded universe. And
3, actually. We put up one in 2016, and then we put 2 more up in 2020. And then, unfortunately and unfortunately, they went up like right after COVID hit. So like, I don't think anyone was actually in the Lucasfilm office, but also because COVID hit, no one had money to do any advertising anymore. So one of those billboards that we had paid for to go up for a month ended up staying up there for like 6 months.
Man.
So we really got our money's worth out of that one.
Yeah. Well, hey, and that's an achievement right there, especially, you know, Twin Suns. There was a Twin Suns one up too, right? For the part of the.
Yeah, that was the second one. Was when we were acting as Twin Sun, Twin Suns Foundation. Also, I think memorable is the first chalk donation, because that was the first donation event that I got to go to, and I actually got to go room to room. It was a really sobering. It was originally really fun experience and a really sobering experience. And the comedy that we had brought 287 books to chalk, and there were, again, great thing, right? We had too many books. There weren't enough kids at the children's hospital to actually like give all our books out, which is a good problem to have, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Oh, absolutely.
But at the same time, it's just like, well, we still have like 250 books left over. Luckily, they had like a library that we could just drop them off of.
Yeah.
And over time,
ride around with them in your trunk, you know.
Yeah.
That's excellent, man. Your journey, it's been fun, and you've been a big supporter, a big helper. You're involved with a lot. You know, I appreciate that you came on and we could talk about that. Is there any final shout outs that you want to give, or anything you want to say to folks?
Final shout outs. I guess there are a lot of people I could shout out that like I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for them. Right. I say this all the time, and Brian hates when I say this, but he is really the heart and soul of the operation. If Brian wasn't around, there would be no Twin Suns, there would be no billboard. And he'll say, no, it was a group effort. But Brian does like, Brian definitely puts in more effort than the rest of us, right? Like maybe he thinks it's only a little bit, but it's still like the most. And he's done a lot. He's really humble about it, but I can't praise him enough. Brian, you stop being humble. You are the reason we're all here. Part of the reason, especially with the billboard and Twin Suns, with all the work you did, in like getting all the legal stuff figured out, and getting us the actual business license, and setting up, doing all like the paperwork and stuff to get us the 501c3 status and all that. Shout out to Matt, because again, it was his video that kind of that helped me find all of this, and it was his like the Skype chats with him, and then through him I met like all these I met like Tristan, would eventually meet Jeremy, I would met Tim and Josie and Chris and you, and pretty much everyone I've met has been through Matt. You know, actually, another fandom, kind of going back to this, fandom I've kind of been a part of, but like not really, is I'm really big into Yu-Gi-Oh! I kind of play it on and off, right? And a couple last year, the original manga artist of it passed away, and like around the time he passed away, a quote that he had put at the end of one of the manga issues had come up from him, talking about, this is like a few years after it had gotten big, and he was talking about how like, you know, this manga that he had written that he had written had now gotten so big that there's like a card game with like tournaments, and there's like a show, and like a lot of these people have met and like had now met and like became like long good friends because of this game that he had essentially created for a manga series. And that's what made him happiest, was like knowing that like there are friends out there that have formed because I have done this. And I kind of feel that same way with like the creator, George Lucas. You know, if it wasn't for him, none of us would be here. I wouldn't have met, most of my friends have been met through Star Wars. If he doesn't make that movie in 1977, where am I? Where are all we? You know, so big shout out to him for making all this and giving us this great universe that we can have so much fun in.
I know. It's like I said, some people just don't realize how big this is. And what, like you said it perfectly, man. Great friendships. Like, we're all down to earth people. We all love it. It brings us together. We talk about it. We have good conversations. We have fun. Maybe we go to events together. Who knows what happens? Like, yeah, I met a lot of you, and I consider you all friends. Every one of you, you know, we share a common interest, and we just vibe very well together. And yeah, George, I mean, I can just imagine. I mean, there's a lot of different interviews with him, but like what he thinks really, like today, like tomorrow he comes out with an interview.
Right.
What do you think of what it's become? You know, I don't, maybe his thoughts have changed, you know, who knows? But man, yeah, it's been a pleasure to have you on. I thank you. I'll put links to, you know, the Twin Suns Foundation, that epic documentary series with Chris. If I forget something, you'll have to tell me, but I wanted to talk to you. You got a lot of knowledge. You're fun. You're a nice guy. You present yourself well. You know, it's a blast. I appreciate everyone's support. If you like what I'm doing here, hit the like, subscribe, tell your friend, your grandma. My grandmother watches. I'm going to have her on sometime. I'm not kidding. So your grandma can watch too. But it's been great, Dylan. I appreciate it. And,
yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll have to get together. I could chat with you a bunch more, to be honest.
Yeah.
But hope you guys all enjoyed. And until next time, see you guys soon.